Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today we are going to be taking a look at Full Brutal by Kristopher Triana. Let me just fucking center that. Cool. Look at that. Wow. Nice cover, huh? The book is 255 pages, broken up into 34 chapters. I'll give you a quick blurb. Kim White, our protagonist, is a generally well-adjusted high school junior. She has everything that a girl her age could want, and she's horrifically bored with it. And the escapades that she gets up to in an effort to make things interesting are horrific and bloody. Before we go any further, let's talk about this channel for a couple of seconds. So I do this once a week. Every week I post a video. I've been posting some shorts recently to try to get some more clicks. Just, clipping parts of the videos that are horrific and disturbing. Sorry, I'm trying to keep myself centered. And yeah, that's kind of the situation right now. It's currently doable at the rate that I'm doing it, but there are going to be weeks in the future where I'm going to be unable to do it because of external factors. So generally, I'm trying to make my videos better, higher quality. I've done a lot of work editing my audio. Now, I'm not a professional audio editor, so it's never going to sound perfect. I'm using a $100 Razer microphone that I purchased 3 or 4 years ago. So the quality itself is just never going to be the best. I use Audacity to record. I edit the audio in DaVinci Resolve, which is my editing platform. I'm trying to make my videos better. Right now, the thing I'm struggling with, I'm kind of happy with my audio where it's at. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. I'm trying to fix the visual static. You can probably see it on your screen right now if you glance really hard. Not really important because this channel isn't really visually based. Like I'm not doing a bunch of shit on screen that you need to be looking at. You could kind of just put your phone off to the side and listen to me talk if you're into that. But I like having a nice camera quality. And currently what I am using is an action camera, like a GoPro, but it's off-brand. And the issue with those is that they need really high light levels to be able to not cause visual static. The ISO needs to be low, is what I'm saying. Otherwise, it tries to compensate, and it compensates hard because it has a little sensor. And I don't fully understand it. I'm not a fucking camera person. But point is, my light levels aren't the best, and it causes visual static. So I'm trying to fix this. Right now, I have a little fucking reading light thing right here. That's what you can see. And that is helping somewhat. I've got my window open. No one besides Rainbolt is going to be able to tell where I am. So you're welcome to try, I guess. That's up to you. So short of me buying a new camera, this is kind of where it's going to be at for now. I'm going to order like a $50 starter lighting kit from Amazon soon. But I've already sunk a lot of money into this, not even just counting the books, and this is like a hobby. Obviously, I'm not getting paid for this. I like doing this, but I can't justify ginormous purchases for new microphones, new cameras, nice lighting setups, a studio or something like that. I mean, right now I'm recording in my room that I share with my partner, so like, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Trying to make my videos better. I have horrific imposter syndrome looking at all of the modern YouTube content, even though there's no reason that I should. I'm a tiny little channel doing stuff that very few people are actually going to watch. It's just more of it's more of a hobby for me. But that conversation's over. I'm going to timestamp all of this so you can skip around that. But we're going to jump into the video now. If you are unfamiliar with my videos, I'm going to be giving you a content sample, which is kind of a novelty trigger warning thing, a pre-summary review, a summary of the book, a post-summary discussion review thing, and then we'll be out of here. I'll also be telling you some scenes from this book in this video, so stick around for that. And without further ado, we're going to jump into our content sample for Full Brutal. Now, if you were to pick up a copy of Full Brutal and read it, you would find all of the following. You have your bog standard gore, torture, mutilation, and death. In this book, that includes cannibalism, genital mutilation, self-harm, and suicide. And then there is also sexual abuse, in this book, including sexual assault, rape, and necrophilic acts. In addition, there is child abuse, including physical abuse and sexual abuse. There is also child death in this book. Also, urine in this book, including urophilic acts and urophagic acts. And then, to top it all off, the nice little rancid cherry on top, there is intimate partner abuse in this book. So, that is your content sample for Full Brutal. We're going to jump into a pre-summary review now. Also, Audacity has been fucking cutting out on me recently every time I'm recording. I don't know why. It says there's a disk space issue, but I don't have shit running. I keep scanning for malware. There's nothing. I don't fucking know. It's just being annoying for the sake of it, I guess. I've never had a problem before. The last, 3 times I've tried to record, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't. Okay, let's start off with this. I don't know that this book is supposed to be a dark comedy, but at certain points it kind of seems like it's supposed to be a dark comedy. Some of the crazy shit that happens towards the end is just so over the top that I can't imagine it was supposed to be gut churning. It's just insane is really the best way to describe it. Kind of like The Night Stalkers, which was also written by Kristopher Triana and Ryan Harding, but it's a little bit more than that. Our protagonist is nuts, a sociopath, narcissist, that kind of thing, and she constantly imagines really random heinous shit and also does really random heinous shit, and it comes off as funny sometimes. Sometimes it is just truly horrific, but a lot of the time it does seem like it's comedic or intended to be comedic. And I mean, I liked it. I personally enjoyed it. There were a couple of scenes that had me laughing out loud when I read them because it was just so what the fuck. But I don't know that that was necessarily fully the intention. And I've never seen this book shilled as a dark comedy. So I don't know. But if you're like me, you're going to find some humor in this book. I have one complaint. There is, as I said, the protagonist is a sociopath, narcissist, whatever. The protagonist does this thing where they constantly relish other people's suffering, which makes sense for the character. But by the end of the book, when we're on our 100th I ate their suffering and it was good line about how their suffering tastes amazing and their pain is incredible and blah, 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 blah. Lots of metaphors and similes alluding to how great it is watching these people grieve and suffer and be in pain and be tortured. It gets a bit trite. Especially, there's a scene, and I can't really touch on this without spoilers, but there is a scene where a family loses a loved one and our main character is watching them grieve, and it is just at the end of every paragraph them talking about how good the suffering is and how it's like they're rolling it around on their tongue like a fucking lozenge and all of these allusions to it being like a food or a good smell or that kind of shit. And it gets a bit trite. It does after a bit. It's a bit fucking much. Overall, I really did enjoy this book. I thought it was very good. And that's really all I can say without spoilers. So we are going to jump into our ratings now. If you are unfamiliar with my rating system, I take certain aspects of a book, plot, prose, that kind of thing, and I rate those things on a scale from 0 to 10. For these first numbers, rated on a scale from 0 to 10, 5 is completely mediocre. 0 is the worst, 10 is the best. Nothing wrong with being a 5, but it's not good, it's not bad, it's completely in the middle. For Full Brutal, the plot and plot direction is a 9. I really did enjoy the plot. I really did enjoy the plot direction. It was kind of hard to word these things sometimes without sounding like I'm just pulling shit out of my ass. It was interesting. Delving into the mind of someone who is a masterful manipulator was rather interesting. I thought the scenes before all of the really violent, crazy shit happens, where our protagonist is just being manipulative, I thought those were done very, very well. It really gives you an insight into the character, but that's getting more into character stuff, so I'm going to move on. Tone was a 6. It was above average. I didn't really feel like I was being pulled into the text, per se, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't even remotely bad. there were some scenes. This could go both ways, right? There were some scenes that were comedic. At least I interpreted them as comedic, and they made me laugh. So that's a strike in the good direction for the tone, assuming those scenes were meant to be comedic. Again, I have never heard this book shilled as being a comedy. It very well might be, but I don't know that for certain. So if the book was intended to be a comedy, then that definitely came through in the tone, in the randomness of some of the violence. If it wasn't, author might need to reevaluate some things, at least in my opinion. So from the way that I see it, I think the tone was done really well. I think some of the scenes that I found to be comedic came through really well. I think some of the scenes that were meant to be disturbing came through very well. But that's my interpretation. So, what I mean, all of this shit is my fucking interpretation, but I digress. For characters and character development, I thought this was a 7. I thought the characters are great. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, we're going to bump that up to an 8. Characters were great. Kim White was great. Going into her head was brilliant. I mean, the whole book is narrated from her perspective. It is done incredibly well. We get to know this girl on the inside and out, literally and figuratively, and it is done incredibly well. Her friends have depth, at least most of them. Her best friend specifically has a lot of depth. Some of the characters are more 2D, but that's to be expected with any novel. You're not going to flesh out every fucking character unless you are writing something like War and Peace or something else from one of the great Russian authors. Characters were done impeccably well. That's all I'll say. Grammar and typos is going to be a 4. There were a couple of typos that I noticed. Because we are from the perspective of a person, like a person is narrating, there's a lot of omission of the word that in sentences that could be considered a thought and thus be considered dialogue-ish. And a lot of times in spoken word, we omit the word that when we are referring to something or when we are concocting a sentence. And there's a couple of times when that happens in the book. I'm not going to say a couple. There were a few times that happens in the book, especially toward the end. And it was a bit jarring just because we're reading something that is not dialogue and we are not speaking, and everything is flowing perfectly, and then all of a sudden we're emitting a word as if we are speaking, and it is a bit jarring, but it's not like, that's not really the main negative. The main negative is just there were a couple of typos, and because you can't really get higher than a 5 in this category, it's kind of just you're perfect, or which is supposed to be like the midpoint, like you're at level, you're at bar, slightly above bar, or there are typos and you use weird grammar, that kind of thing. So there were like 2 or 3 typos, and thus I rated it a 4. Dialogue's going to be a 6. It's above average. Again, like the tone, didn't draw me in, didn't have me imagining that these conversations were like real, they weren't speaking out of the page at me, but they were written very well, and everything sounded like something that a real person could say. Nothing was cringy, nothing was off. It was done very well. Prose is going to be a 5. I really didn't notice anything incredible about the prose. The structure was fine. The words were all fine. The flow was fine. There weren't any concoctions of words that like made sense grammatically, but were just weird. So none of that kind of shit. It was overall done well, fine, but it wasn't incredible and it wasn't bad. Personal enjoyment is going to be a 7. As I said, overall, I really did enjoy this book. I thought it was done very well. I felt like I was in the shoes of the main character. I thought the violence and disturbing aspects disturbing aspects throughout, and the blood and gore towards the end, I thought that was all done incredibly well. It was disturbing, it was visceral, it was gory. I enjoyed it. These next 2 numbers are your gross out factor and your disturbing factor, rated on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is the least gross, the least disturbing, and 10 is the most gross, the most disturbing. For Full Brutal, I gave the disturbing factor a 9. It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad. There's kid death, a lot of kid death. I mean, all of the deaths, or almost all the deaths, happen to high school aged kids. But when I say kid death, I mean like 5-year-olds, 9-year-olds. There's also sexual assault, orchestrated sexual assault, creepy teachers. It's a lot. It's fucked up. Necrophilia, gross out factor is going to be a 3. It wasn't the most gross thing that I've ever read. Wow, fucking record player there, skipping a beat. Jesus. Ever read, but it was pretty gross. Again, scenes with necrophilia, blood, guts, cannibalism, a lot of cannibalism. That doesn't necessarily make me queasy, but it might make some people, ugh, you know. Overall, though, not necessarily very gross, very, very disturbing. That is going to be it for our ratings, and we are now going to jump into light spoilers with our excerpts and scenes from the book. I have 2 to tell you about, so prepare yourself. If you do not want any part of the book spoiled for you, now is the time to jump off, because we're going to jump from this into the plot summary, into a post-summary discussion. All that shit is spoilers. This is light spoilers. Again, not going to be giving you names, not going to be giving you specifics, characters, when, how, what. Going to be telling you the scene in very brief terms, or very vague terms, but specific enough to get across the things that are happening. So again, I'm going to give you a second to click off. If you're still here, we're going to get into it. There is a scene in the book where a character goes into an older man's daughter's room, and she has the older man follow her. And they've been fucking. They've fucked before. And this character bends over this older man's daughter's dresser and has him fuck her. And while he is fucking her, she calls him daddy, and then reaches behind herself and squeezes his balls until he calls her his daughter's name. And they have sex like that. In his daughter's room, on his daughter's furniture, her calling him daddy and him calling her his daughter's name. And then, when he comes, she moves out of the way, and he comes all over his daughter's panties in the drawer on the dresser. And then the girl he was fucking picks up his daughter's sweatshirt and uses it to wipe herself off. The next scene I'm going to tell you about, something I wrote down in my script as the nail gun scene. There is a victim in this book trying to hide under a car, and the murderer, the perpetrator, walks up to them with a fully loaded nail gun, lifts up the victim's skirt, puts the nail gun to their genitals, and pulls the trigger until there are no more nails left. So, those are your scenes. We're going to get into a plot summary now. Heavy spoilers. If you were here for the light spoilers but don't want the heavy spoilers, now's the time to leave. As always, I purposefully leave things out of my plot summaries that I could have included even in a summary. I purposefully rearranged some details so it's easier for me to explain, and so that if you were to go and read a book, you would have a very different experience than if I were to just tell you about the book. If you go and read full brutal after my summary, you will have a very different experience than if you were to just sit here and listen to my summary. But I understand if you don't want spoilers, so leave now. That out of the way, we're going to get into it. Kim White, our protagonist, is a nice, fit, wealthy, popular, beautiful girl of 16. She is one of the top cheerleaders on her team, and she has everything that a girl her age could want. And she hates it. She constantly whiles away the hours by contemplating her suicide, picking bits of her skin off and eating them in a ritualistic, self-harm-esque fashion, and she also wishes that she had a way to change her life. She's a horrific sadist with psychopathic and narcissistic tendencies. She feels very little for her friends and uses people to get what she wants. She's constantly fantasizing about hurting those around her. She decides that she needs to lose her virginity, hearing from her best friend, Amy, that it is a life-changing event. So, she seduces, and I hate using that word in this context, but she seduces her 40-year-old sex ed teacher and has him fuck her. She doesn't get anything out of the sex, but finds pleasure in the grief and panic he feels after they're done and he considers what could happen to him. She vows to ruin his life. She then befriends his daughter, Caitlin and begins mentoring her through cheer practice, slowly planning to destroy her life in order to get to her father. Halfway through this escapade, however, she realizes that she doesn't even really want to hurt her teacher anymore and is more enamored with the idea of destroying Caitlin. She invites Caitlin to a party, drugs her with Klonopin, tells one of her male friends, Derek, that Caitlin's innocence is a facade and that she likes to be taken. The friend, Derek, then proceeds to drunkenly rape Caitlin. When he's finished, Kim takes revealing photos of Caitlin. She then helps to comfort Caitlin as she goes through this grief of having been raped, all the while helping to spread rumors about her promiscuity through the school and social circles, etc. Caitlin eventually leaves the school in tears. Kim, at this point, realizes that she is pregnant with her teacher's child. She meets up with him and he starts beating her. She stabs him to death. She soon after begins doing all of the things you're not supposed to do while pregnant, hoping beyond all hope that she will miscarry. When Caitlin's family finds out that the father, the man of the household, is dead, Kim helps comfort Caitlin through her grief. Then, using an alter ego online, she spreads the photos of Caitlin. When Caitlin eventually returns to the school broken, she is bullied and confronted with the pictures. She has a nervous breakdown and ends up in the psych ward. When she gets out of the psych ward, Kim feeds her lines about her father, causing Caitlin to kill herself with a shard of broken glass. Derek gets in trouble for the rape with the police, and the town whispers about how he could have been the one to kill Caitlin's father, wondering if the father confronted him and he snapped. Derek, realizing somewhat what is going on, goes to Kim's house and pleads with her to tell the truth. She kills him and chops him up. The developing fetus inside her then seethes with anger and scrapes at her insides until she eats some of his flesh. She packages his organs and some of his muscles into the fridge. Later, after she's run out of food and the fetus starts up again, she kills one of her close female friends and this friend's mom. She tears her friend apart, taking some of the cuts back home with her. As the school year ends, she plans a spa retreat with Amy. Amy discovers the teacher's wallet in Kim's bag. Kim attacks her and ties her up. Kim then realizes that this is the end. There's too much evidence against her. People know where Amy was supposed to be. She has human organs in her fridge and mementos from her kills strewn about the house. She then proceeds to torture Amy and stuff Derek's rotting penis inside of her. She then lures Amy's boyfriend over with promises of a threesome. She then rapes him at gunpoint while Amy watches. Upon climaxing, she shoots Amy in the stomach and then dispatches the boyfriend. She then stabs Amy over 30 times to death. Kim then loads up a duffel bag with tools and torture instruments and extra magazines for her pistol. She proceeds to go on a rampage, streaming the event from her phone attached to her chest like a body cam style thing. During this rampage, she shoots some elderly lady, some kids playing in their yard, and then goes to the school's field where her cheer team is practicing, and she begins to shoot up the field. At this point, she has fully snapped and is hallucinating and hysterical. She feels the fetus move again, attacking her, and she decides she has to kill it once and for all. She stabs herself repeatedly in the stomach as emergency services arrive and surround her, managing to pull the forming baby out of herself and into the sun before she dies. It's presumed that she dies. I would assume that she dies. I guess there's a chance she didn't somehow, but it very heavily implies at the end that she is fading fast. Yeah, that's the book. As I said, really, really fucked up. And yeah, that's putting it lightly. So, post-summary discussion. As I said, I really enjoy the characters, and I enjoyed the plot. And I don't know if this was fully intentional, okay? I'm going to say that right off the bat. But I like how Kim is not entirely blameless in some of the things that happen, right? She seduces her 40-year-old teacher, aka she has sex with her teacher because she comes on to him, as some 16-year-old girls and some 16-year-old boys will do to their teachers, and her teacher does not have the self-control to tell her no. So that is mostly the teacher's fault. Now, Kim is evil. Kim is literally the embodiment of evil. I think the author even says in the afterword that he was trying to write a character that was as purposefully evil as possible, but she is not blameless in that. Her teacher had years on her and should have known better, and she is just a girl. At the end of the day, she is just a girl. She is evil, but she is just a girl. And who knows, maybe if her teacher had reported her behavior, something else might have happened. Maybe she would have gotten the help she clearly needed. She's not necessarily a lost cause at this point. She's slowly forming into her sadomasochistic self. And if she had been reported early, which is what you're supposed to do in a situation where a student comes onto you, maybe things would have turned out different, which is exactly why you don't fuck students when they come onto you, because there may be something else going on other than just 16-year-old crazy hormones. Also, child, let's get that out of the way. Child. But, I mean, at the very least, she was young and vulnerable and looking for an escape from her pain, and her teacher took advantage of that, which is exactly why you're not supposed to do that, because the person is young and is vulnerable and maybe looking for an escape from pain. Also, Derek is a rapist. Kim did orchestrate that sexual assault, but Derek raped that girl. Derek took his friend's word instead of the girl on the bed telling him no. Derek's a rapist. So I do like the fact that Kim is not necessarily entirely blameless in a lot of these escapades. Now, obviously, at the end, entirely her fault. No one was making her do those awful, heinous things, but she is not entirely to blame for some of the earlier atrocities. All right. She may have orchestrated them, but she can't be entirely to blame in those situations, in my opinion, which I think is kind of the point. There's one last thing. The descent into madness at the end, she goes from cold, calculated, I guess Ted Bundy-esque style, like murderer, killer, cannibal. Bundy wasn't a cannibal that I know of, but you get what I'm saying. Cold and calculated. And then she immediately snaps and goes like full psychotic, like starts seeing eyes in the trees and people watching her and colors melting, and she loses track of her emotions and like is worried about people perceiving her as a pregnant teen, even though she's just killed a bunch of people, but that's what she's worried about, is being a pregnant teen, so she rips the baby out of her. It just feels a little rushed, because she immediately goes from like having her wits about her, having her inhibitions about her, to psychosis, which I guess is kind of accurate. People kind of just do snap when they have a psychotic break. But in a book, I feel like a little bit of lead up would have been helpful. Maybe if she starts to slip a little bit. And the author, again, in the afterword, talking about the afterword again, does suggest that she's going insane throughout the book, which I guess you could make the argument that anyone who is increasingly doing more heinous and violent things to other people is going insane or further insane. But I take that to mean that she's like losing her grip on reality. And to some extent she is. She does wonder if people would view her crimes as heinous, because she doesn't view them as heinous because they're nothing to her. But I view that more as her being psychopathic, having little emotion, being emotionally dissociated, than her losing grip on reality. That strikes me as more she's already lost grip on reality enough to kill people, not I'm seeing shadows whispering my name in the corners, kind of crazy. So again, just a little bit more of like a gradient instead of just an abrupt shift. And maybe I missed some things. Maybe it is more of a gradient, but to me it did kind of seem like an abrupt shift. And again, in real life, that's kind of how it can happen. It's just one day you're fine, the next day you're having a psychotic episode. But again, writing a book, maybe just a little more of a gradient so it's not so sudden. That's just my opinion, though. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. I read all of my comments. I respond. I'll either respond to you with a message, or I will like your comment, give you a heart, that kind of thing. I don't get many, so I like to read them all. I take suggestions into account, that kind of thing, blah, 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 blah. If you like this video, I release a video every Friday, or at least I try to. My opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. I would highly recommend that you read Full Brutal. I will leave a link in the description to where you can buy a copy of Full Brutal. Support the author, all that good jazz. And anything else? No, don't think so. That's about it. See ya.